Welcome back to Sigulda in Latvia. It is the second race weekend of the BMW IBSF Bobsleigh and Skeleton World Cup, and Friday is Skeleton Day. And we are just getting ready for the second and deciding heat in race 2 of the Skeleton World Cup for women. Men's action this afternoon. 18 sleds from 11 nations in our field, and just one change from last week's starting order in Team GB. Well, after the first of our 2 heats, silver medalist a week ago, Kimberly Boss of the Netherlands had another good-looking first heat. Like everybody else on this track, Latvians included, things to tidy up, but she lies in a very strong 3rd place. Another quick start from our start record holder, Elena Nikitina of Russia. Didn't quite trouble her own track record, but she lies in the silver medal position. A big difference from last week. No real difference from last week, though, for Austria's Janine Flock, wearing the yellow vest of our new World Cup points leader. The winner last week with a track record broke that track record in the first heat to take the lead. Well, last week she ended up winning by a significant margin over Kimberly Boss and Dija Tarauda. And this week she's 3/10 ahead of Elena Nikitina, 4/10 ahead of Kimberly Boss, and half a second ahead of anyone else in the rest of the field. Could be an interesting battle for the medals. Not a long way from Nikitina down to about 6th or 7th place. Bronze medalist a week ago in Dija Tarauda, didn't happen for her in the first heat. She's 8/10 of a second back in 10th place. But again, another very tight battle, only 1100s covering 10th to 15th. So the athletes, this is such a great revelation now, is the introduction of video replays that you can watch from an iPad. You'll see coaches filming all the way around to the tricky corners. The athletes can see their line, so they don't have to remember exactly what happened. German sliders here just checking their runners, making sure there's no tiny little imperfections in them, and setting up as well. The runners aren't flat, they're not parallel to the track, they're bowed like a rocking chair. And the contact patch, you can move where the contact patch is, forwards or backwards on the sled a little bit by changing the arch in the middle. And you can also reduce or increase the contact patch depending on ice conditions and the runners you're using. As ever, we go into our second heat with the athletes lined up in reverse order of their first heat performance. So we go last to fast, Nicole Silveira of Brazil, who makes her first 2 race weekends here in the World Cup. She is first off, and the last to go will be Janine Flock, nursing that 3/10 of a second advantage over Elena Nikitina. And Kimberly Boss looking for a second consecutive medal this weekend. Kimberly second in the World Cup standings. Second and deciding heat, race 2 of the BMW IBSF Women's Skeleton World Cup. Nicole Silveira of Brazil, born and bred in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, spent part of her life also back in Brazil. Now she lives in Calgary. She's a nurse and a full-time skeleton athlete. 5:28, that's exactly the same as she had in her first heat. And as you can imagine, the Brazilian team fairly small. You're looking at a very, very large percentage of it right here. No male skeleton slider in the World Cup for Brazil. 90.5 kilometers now, the best speed. We will measure the others against that. Little skiddy, taking the hits to try and just keep the speed on board. 108.7, we'll see 114 maybe from the very fastest sleds at the end of the run. And across the line, interested on looker there. Wonder what Fido has learned from that run. 53.95 slide, and she had a 53.55 first heat. So interesting. Let's see whether, as last week, as the day warms up, the track starts to slow a little. So again, the sled yawing. Watch the head. She's steering with the head, with the shoulders, the knees, and in extremis, the toes come out to just adjust the line as well. Trying to be as relaxed on the sled as possible, shoulders bowed down onto the sled to reduce that frontal area. The more you see the athlete's body kind of acting as a shock absorber on the sled, the better it is. It means you're not fighting it all the way. So into the leader's box, Nicole Silveira. Next up, Brogan Crowley for Team GB. Brogan made her World Cup debut here in February in the World Cup race in Sigulda. This is her second ever World Cup start, 26 years old. Based at Bath University, where all the British sliding high performance testing and training tends to be done. Former heptathlete. 5:25 start, 5:24 in the first heat. Long drag down into corner 2. Line there carries your speed down through 3 and 4 and 5, and then whipping into 6. Very busy early on here. Then you get a tiny breather from 9 down to 10, and then all hell breaks loose again out of 11, 12, and 13, and then whipping into 14 again. And then down at the bottom of the track. 8/10 up over Nicole Silveira, 1:13.9, that's good pace. This is a better looking run from Brogan Crowley. Across the line, 52.50. And a 53.04 first heat, so 1400ths of a second better. English, Irish, Barbadian heritage for Brogan Crowley of Great Britain. Applied for British skeleton selection back in 2014 off the back of injuries that took her out of action for the junior heptathlon squad. She watched Lizzie Arnold spear to gold and thought, oh, I could probably do a bit of that. TV coverage of the sport, particularly in the Olympic Games, has brought an awful lot of athletes in. So Brogan Crowley takes over in the leader's box. Next up is Alessia Crippa of Italy. Alessia with 1700ths of a second advantage over the current leader from our first heat. Just 20 years old from the Sud Tirol. This is her third World Cup start. Last year, mostly in the Intercontinental Cup and the Europa Cup. 5:15 getaway, so that's a 10th quicker than Brogan Crowley. So that immediately gives her added time in the bank. Quietly from 3 to 4. Corner 6, 7. A good exit off 10. He's going to start this sequence well. Looked better in 11. Little tap. Whoa, in all sorts of trouble, controlling it onto 13. Comes out of 14, 3300ths up. Hasn't got as much speed on board. It didn't have. But she'll have the lead at the line. Good exit out of the 5. She doesn't. 52.71. It did go away. Ooh, not a bad exit out of the final corner. Maybe just working a little too hard for it. And all of the yawing and skidding. That was corner 11. We saw a lot of it in the first heat. Alessia starting 5:15 though. That's a good getaway. Top 10 starts. Working hard though. And the sled with a bit of a mind of its own. Corner 15. I hate to lose even one spot. So Brogan Crowley remains in the leader's box as we move up next to Elena Frolova of Russia. Now, like Brogan, like Alessia, inexperienced in World Cup terms. This is only her second World Cup start. She made her debut a week ago today here. But this is Russia's second home track and almost doesn't make it onto the sled. Undershot that one. 5:27 getaway compared to 5:13 in the first heat, and wrestling herself back onto the sled while it's traveling down through that start groove will have taken speed out of her as well. She had 3100s in hand. She's keeping most of that, but she doesn't have the same speed as Alessia Crippa did, or Brogan Crowley. Hanging on to that gap, long skid though, and tap dancing her way down the straight. Into 15, second best speed. She's really hanging it out, and she should have the lead at the line. Has a hit on the wall, she does, but only by a tenth, 52.71. Same time we just saw from Alessia Crippa, so she hangs on, courtesy of her first run. That was 2100s slower than Brogan Crowley in the second heat. But look at that. Oh. Oof, lands right on the saddle. And that's about as comfortable as it looked. So one of her feet goes away from her just as she's going over the brow, skids, and those final two steps. And that will have been burning all the way down. Elena Frolova has the lead for the moment though, but she's not perhaps going to get the move up that she hoped for. Here is Elena Frolova's teammate, Julia Kanakina. Third fastest start in the field, but only 14th at the bottom of the track. Well, that's a similar story to the way it went for her, for Elena, and for Elena Kitina, and for Elena Frolova last week. She loads from the other side, cleanly enough, at a 5.01 to a 4.99 in the first heat. So again, as ever, the former ballet dancer in the top 3 or 4 starters in the women's field. Knows the track well, junior world champion here in 2017, but last week the Russians, the wheels just fell off the wagon, and it wasn't great in her first run either. Second best speed. Julia is fighting this every inch of the way, 9/10 up on her teammate, Elena. She had 3,500s over her from the first heat, so this is a better run. It's holding together towards the line. That could move her up a few spots. 52.07 in the first heat would have been the 7th fastest run. Her first heat was a 52.38. That's 3,100s faster than she managed in heat 1. That's a much better run. So out of 4 competition runs, finally 1 has come good for Julia Kanakina. Still a little hard take on there. Out of 14. Just drive it along with her hips and her shoulders. Much better run from Julia. There'll be a little bit more of a smile under the mask. Julia Kanakina leads from Elena Frolova and Brogan Crowley. 5 down, 13 to go. Agabessar of France, the first of our sliders to hit the ice this morning in Heat 1. Finished in 16th place in last week's race. She lies in 13th place in a similar-sized field this week. So improvement for the French girl in her 4th World Cup start. 23-year-old former skier. 5.41, a little quicker than her first heat. Agabessar always wanted to be a skeleton slider. Grew up around the La Plagne track. Always appealed to her, but she was too young to start. Didn't want to go to luge, so skied instead. Oh, elbow out, real hard working here to try and get control back. She's going to drop behind Kanakina. She'll possibly drop behind Frolova as well. She's second fastest at the moment, or in second spot on the splits. Long skid there though, and that'll rob her of speed. And it's uphill here all the way to the line. 52.54, third fastest run. Fastest so far from Julia Kanakina, second fastest from Brogan Crowley, and third fastest from Agathe Bessard. So Bessard slips into second place. But she's ahead of Elena Frolova and Brogan Crowley, Alessia Crippa and Nicole Silveira. So she'll be no worse than 14th position. That was a busy, busy ride for Agathe Bessard of France. Again here, long skid uphill. Imagine how much that slows you down.
Merci de regarder.
Thank you for being with us. For the Czech Republic, Anna Fernstedt started her sliding career in Bavaria at Koenigsee. For the German team, competed for them, and then 3 years ago started sliding for Czech Republic. Started 5:44 in the first heat and picked up speed all the way down. 5:47. She does need another good run. We know that Anna can drive. First run was not absolutely what she needed. It takes a while to undo the damage of a slower start here. So she's in the red. Still in third place. Speed is decent. Third best speed so far. Using the height there. Cleanish exit from 14 up to second place at the moment. Best speed we've seen so far. She's going to have to really be smooth down at the bottom to take the lead away from Julia Kanakina. Hits the wall and doesn't quite get it. And that last hit just before the timing line will have robbed her of enough to just be behind by 0.03 of a second. So she'll be a little disappointed about that, because she started 0.46 of a second slower than Kanakina and came down just 0.09 slower. Little skid here off 14, gets it sorted out. Then here into 15, big height. Swoops down, just a little late flop on the exit. Those mistakes just at the bottom of the track there, taking away her position. So she'll finish no worse than 13th. Julia Kanakina leads as we get now to the fastest starter in Heat 1, Valentina Margalio. Said after Heat 1, this was a very tight little group, could see lots of changes. And if the Italian has a half-decent bottom part of the track, she could really soar up the order. 4.99. That is still the third fastest start we've seen so far. But, oof, hit from 3 to 4. She really gets whipped around a lot in some of these turns. Like teammate Alessia Crippa, she's petite, she's quite slight. Little late flop. She's not going to be in the green for long. The gap is down to only 100th of a second. Back by 0.17, little skid up to 15, and only the 7th high speed. So Valentina Margalio is going to drop a couple of places here. And across the line, 5th fastest run, she drops down to 3rd. Julia Kanakina remains in the leader's box for Russia. See how mild it is. Nobody's rushed for the big, thick jackets to keep them warm, despite the fact that a thin layer of lycra is not doing much of a job in keeping anybody warm. Those transitions just a little late between the two of them. And again, a late flop here. Timing the steers within, a few hundredths of a second to make the difference. That's where all of that experience comes in, that the most experienced athletes bring to bear. Not just the experience of the track, but just experience per se, judging how the track is speeding up or slowing down. Valentina Margallo drops behind Anna Fernstedt and our current leader, Julia Kanakina. We have 10 sleds to go here in Sigulda. It's another mild November morning, and luckily not too humid. Not a great deal of clear sky overhead, but not too damp. So there's your race leader, Julia Kanakina. And disappointing week for Julia last week, despite good starts. Only finished in 11th spot. 35th World Cup race for her. And this could be one that sees her, well, likely back in the top 10. This is Indija Terauda of Latvia. We'll see her in a couple of minutes. There's just a 2-minute pause here to allow for station commercial. And Terauda, with her World Cup debut last weekend, having a really solid run. Good, very good first heat, got her into 3rd position, and nobody was able to catch her from that. Down to earth a little bit with the bump, with a top 10 run, which I'm sure she would happily have taken last week. But after last week's successes, a little bit disappointing perhaps, only to be 10th fastest. However, in a field with the quality that we've got in the women's skeleton field, that's not a real disappointment. Coach checking his watch. Everything is back timed to the second for your start time. There's your race leader, chilling out in the leader's box, waiting for the next few sliders to see how far up the order she can rise. Well, don't forget, men's skeleton coming up this afternoon, 3 p.m, 1300 GMT for the first sled on ice, and we'll be bringing you all the coverage from both heats live from Sigulda. Second and deciding heat, race 2 of the BMW IBSF Women's Skeleton World Cup. Indija Terauda of Latvia. And Indija was in 3rd place last week. Top 10 run in the first heat. An astonishing debut, really, for the young Latvian. 3rd fastest in her first heat. She was the very first to start the season as well. So that's all sorts of pressure on a young slider, just 23 years old. This is another good-looking run. 2/10 behind Julia Kanakina. Kanakina starts so fast, it takes a long time to undo that. 92.1 was the best speed we've seen so far. But only the 6th best speed, it's all slipping away a little. 2nd best at the moment, but there's only 300s between Kanakina and Fernstedt, and she doesn't manage to bridge the 2:52.27 slide for Indija Terauda, so she will be no worse than 12th place. But she started her World Cup career with a bronze medal last week. So there you go, that is the ups and downs of any sport, never mind sliding. Look at the silvery V on the front of her helmet. That's where the tape that was freshly applied before Heat 1 this morning has been dragged away as she buries her face in the ice. Long skid there. She just breaks it into the corner and then out of turn 14. Decent exit. A little. Next up for Germany, and Hannah also making her World Cup debut with Elena Frolova, with Indija Terauda, and with Amelia Coltman last weekend. And Nisa, very new to the German team. Youth Olympic silver medalist in 2016 in girls skeleton. And in the selection races, she really left the coaches with no option but to pick her for the World Cup squad. Of more experienced rivals. 3100s back from Julia Kanakina, but she was 3000s back from her start alone. Second best speed, she's bringing the gap down, but that's the end of the run in terms of being competitive, I think. It's as close to a crash as you're going to see that doesn't actually involve the athlete being underneath the sled. Gaps out to 4/10 back, it'll be closer to 8/10 at the line maybe. 1:11.4, only the 8th best speed, and now it probably feels very pedestrian to her. 6/10 nearly at the line. A 52.81. So in fact, that's only quicker than Nicole Silveira of Brazil. Well, again, as with Andia Tirada, that is the ups and downs of sport. And here she gets too much early height, fighting it all the way. Legs akimbo, knees burying in the sled, toe drag, and a late exit. Huge flop. Yep. The coach's body language probably represents exactly what Hannah was thinking, but, you know, there you go. Hannah Nyser, 13th place last week, and she is currently in 6th position with 8 to go, so no worse than 14th. Ashley Pittaway of Great Britain up next. And Ashley last week finishing in 12th position. She's 8th after the first heat. And of course, each of these athletes has a slightly greater advantage over our current race leader, Julia Kanakina. In Ashley's case, it is 0.2 of a second, but a 5:16 start is not bad. However, that's 1500ths of her advantage gone to Kanakina. 3 to 4, creeps through there nicely, only 1100s back. Neat and tidy run so far from Ashley Pittaway. Sled looks just a little slidey underneath her, and only 6th highest speed. She's going to need something very special at the bottom to take the lead away from Kanakina. That's a good exit, much better than her first run. 100th back, here we go. 1:14.4, very good speed, and a much cleaner run from 15 to 16. She was broadside all the way down the track. She is going to be our leader, hits the wall, and a 10th in front, 52.17. Still a 10th slower than Julia Kanakina, but she had that advantage of 2/10 from the first heat, so she stops the Russian in her tracks and takes over in the leader's box with 7 to go.
Oh, hi.
It's not Jesus, it's Ilko. Well, you know, the start is great if you've got it. It's not the be-all and the end-all if you don't. Our first heat leader only started 10th fastest. 4th place was only 11th fastest. 6th place only 15th fastest.
Thanks, everybody, for watching.
So Ashley Pittaway is the race leader. We will have a British leader. I did this last week, didn't I? Now, where was it? Where I said we will have at least somebody in the leader's box, and then they tied to the 100th. Will we have the same again with Laura Dees, the Olympic bronze medalist, having a much better time here this fortnight, or 3 weeks by the time they leave, in Sigulda than she did in either of the last 2 seasons. Came and trained here 2 years ago, didn't race. She had a lot of problems with vibration and feeling a bit concussed. Didn't have a good time on the ice last year. 1800s in front though, off a 5:08 start, quicker than her first heat. Now, what changes has she made to her Blackrock sled? It's looking good so far. Still ahead of Ashley Pittaway and trying to aim for another top 6 finish, Laura Dees. 1700s up, here we go. 6th a week ago, 2nd best speed, and another good run from 15 to 16. Shin dragging along the ice, 3500s up, the first sub. 52 run of the heat, 51.89. 2200ths of a second quicker than her first run. That's a slight, sizable increase, isn't it? A quarter of a second nearly when it's only taking you 52 seconds to get down. And Laura determined to get herself back into good form as we head towards the next games in Beijing 2022. She wants to go and aim for the medal podium again this time. A little better there for the girl from Wrexham Clwyd. Laura Dees of Great Britain, the race leader, with 6 sleds to go. In 6th position is Germany's Jacqueline Lurling, only finished in 8th place last week here. This is the 40th World Cup start for Jacka, our World Cup champion from last season. While Lurling did not race here in February. It's been a couple of seasons since she was on ice in Sigulda. Let's see if another week of training has helped her. 5:31 start in the first heat. 5:27, just a little bit more. A lean from 1 to get it into 2. Let's see the exit from 3 to 4. Not too much ice kicked up there. Only 1100s back. Laura Dees started 5:08 to 5:27 of Jacka. Jacqueline Lurling had 600s only in hand. Late exit there though. Oh, working really hard. She's in the lead, but by how much? Not enough. Oh, and on the wrong side going into 15. Only the 4th highest speed. Not sure this is coming back at all for Jacqueline Lurling. Laura Dees will be the leader at the line. Yeah, 52.18 for Jacka, 1300 slower than her first heat. Again, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah. 27th at the start, really? Yeah, good start. And for her, definitely it was, but it came undone. 10, 11, 12, 13. Look at this very late exit, big flop, hits the wall, puts her late in. She's late off again, and it just accumulates. Later. Hauls it all back together off 14, but by that stage, she's worked so hard to get it back under control. The speed has ebbed away. So Laura Dees is the race leader with 5 to go. 5th place last week, Kim Marmont of Belgium. 5th place this week, Kim Marmont of Belgium. Another product of the German training squad, 4 years old. 5:02. That's a very good getaway, but compromised badly by the run from 1 to 2. Lot of toe dragging there. Gets turned away from 3 to 4 as well. 1200s up on Laura Dees. She had 1100s from the first heat, and it's all gone. And the 14th best speed. Really tough second heat already for Kim Marmont. She knew it from 1 down to 2. Only 200s in front. Can she hold it together? Now she's coming back. 3rd best speed, 1:14.5. That's pretty much where Laura Dees was. This is going to be very close at the line. Only a few hundreds in it. She hits the wall 800s back. 52.08. So Laura Dees still the only slide down in the second heat in the 51s. And Kim Marmont drops a spot. It'll still be a second top 6 finish of the season. But here, 1 to 2. Working harder than anybody we've seen so far. Late exit down here as well. This is 10, 11. And then 12, 13, 14. Didn't really get it all sorted out until she was back, heading up to 15. Well, 2 top 6 runs to start your year. Good stuff. 4 to go, and here is Tina Hermann, the world champion. World Championships, we're heading back to Altenburg in Saxony in February this year for the World Championships, where we were in February this year, so next year, whatever. Anyway, it's Altenburg again. Tina Hermann then, let's see what she can produce. First start was a 5:23, the 11th best start, 5:23. She had the 4th best slide. Little toe drag down into 2 as well. Has 1 changed? Oh, and a big hit from 3 to 4. And a big take on there onto 6 as well. You really heard her hit the take on. These corners are pretty short, a lot of them. The transitions are very short, a lot of them. You whistle from one straight into the other. Look at the whip that the athlete gets. And think of the G-forces there as well. 300s up, where's the speed? She's only creeping into the lead over Laura Dees, but the best speed from Tina Hermann, doing what she does so well. Somehow controls it, and at the line, whoa. That was a heck of a second half of the run from Tina Hermann. Goodness me, 51.75 to the 51.89 of Laura Dees. Yeah, she's happy with that. One run, she said, just one, she'd like to get something right. Was it 3 to 4 she was thinking of? Well, 1 to 2 wasn't exactly genius, but it's down here at the bottom where the speed is at the highest. That's where her spidey senses tingle most. Well, she's in the lead. Do you know what? That might be enough for a medal here. Tina Hermann, the leader from Laura Dees and Kim Marmans. And we have 3 sleds to go in Sigulda. Shooting for the medals for the 2nd week in a row. Kimberly Boss, 2nd in the World Cup rankings, our silver medalist last week. Final 3 sleds, race 2 of the BMW IBSF Women's Skeleton World Cup at Sigulda in Latvia. And the young Dutch slider, let's see what she can produce here. 5:11 first start, 5:13. Now she's got to beat Tina Hermann to guarantee herself a medal. She had a 10th in hand over the German slider from the first heat. Brush on the wall, 3 to 4, 3 tenths up. She's got to survive 10, 11, 12, 13 without major dramas. Not too bad, working hard to control the line. Out of 13, crossover into 14's good, little touch, still 3 tenths up. This could be Kimberly Boss heading for a medal. 1:15.2, 3rd best speed, should be enough. Should be enough for the medals for a 2nd week in a row. Hits the wall, but oh, she's a dead heat. They are both in the medals. That's ridiculous. That's really, really close. I thought maybe when she hit the wall going to the line, that might be enough to take it away, but she is in the medals for the 2nd week in a row. You saw Joske Lecomte at the top of the track, the former Dutch slider who's here helping her with her coaching. And absolutely delighted for Kimberly Boss again, I think for the 2nd week in a row. And this will mean that Kimberly Boss will head away after Sigulda, 2nd in the World Cup standings with 2 medals under her belt. The first 2 in the World Cup of her career and for any Dutch skeleton slider. Okay, so now then, let's argue about the other medals. We have 2 leaders, Kimberly Boss and Tina Hermann. 2nd place after the first of our 2 heats here is the woman who won both races in February, 2 years ago rather, Elena Nikitina of Russia. So she won here in 18-19 and 19-20. She's won both the previous races before last weekend. Another very quick start for her, 491. Set the start record in February at 485. It was a lot colder and harder at the top of the track then. 65 hundredths up, but look at that, only 11th best speed. Is she going to be able to hang on here? She was only a 10th ahead of Kimberly Boss. 5 tenths, long skid. This is enough, surely. Still the 5th best speed. This is going to put Elena Nikitina in the medals, isn't it? It must be enough. Just avoids the wall, 15 hundredths up, 51.80. Well, only 2 hundredths of a second slower than her first run. She's in the medals. She's not going to end up. She might end up possibly with the 3rd win on the track, but not in the dominant form of the season opener 2 years ago and the season closer in February, where she really just rocked everybody else completely out of the competition. Nothing wrong with her starting, and a little misfiring last week. Doesn't seem to be an awful lot wrong with her sliding either. A little wild from 3 to 4. She gets a big hit on the wall there. Some of those exits were a little late for somebody who knows this track so well. But so often now, when it matters, she can find it. So, can Janine Flock to go 2-0 from the start of the season? Matthias Guggenberger with the sled at the top of the track. 31 hundredths advantage. Where's the yellow vest of our World Cup points leader? Janine Flock, her 81st World Cup start. She won her 80th. Is she going to win her 81st? 5:14. Again, the Russian Elena Nikitina is such a quick starter. Janine still getting good starts, top 10 start. Gets a knock away, 3 to 4, but again, it doesn't send her into a skid. 6 hundredths up on Nikitina. Look how quiet she looks. 6th best speed. Has she got enough left in the tank? Is there enough speed on board? Good exit out of 14, 27 hundredths up. She should be closer to the top. She is closer to the top of the speed traps. 1:17.3. It's going to be double gold to start the season for Janine Flock. Hits the wall, doesn't matter. Look at that, a new track record. Beats the track record she set last week. Beats the track record she set in the first heat by 100th of a second. Janine Flock wins a 2nd straight weekend. And that is the first time, well, it's the first time in her career she's ever won twice in a fortnight on the same track, because nobody's had that opportunity in skeleton, I don't think. But it is her first time she has won 2 consecutive weekends, as far as I'm aware. A big smile on her face. And so there should be. 10th fastest start, and she was trying to beat the woman who has the fastest start in the business. Janine Flock, though, again, another special slide. Great control, but great speed as well, and that is the absolute winner. Control is one thing, speed is another, but to be able to combine the two, that is the holy grail. Janine Flock wins again. Elena Nikitina in 2nd position, and Kimberly Boss and Tina Herman are both in the medals. Laura Dees 5th, her best result of the season. Kim Malman's a 2nd, top 6 ahead of Jacqueline Lurling, Ashley Pittaway, Yulia Kanakina, and Anna Fernstedt rounding out the top 10. India Terada, Valentina Margalio, Agat Bessar ahead of Hannah Neiser, Elena Frolova and Brogan Crowley, with Alessia Crippa and Nicole Silveira completing our field here as we finish our 2nd World Cup race for women's skeleton here in Sigulda. And that means that wearing the yellow vest again as we head to a fortnight of action in Innsbruck, Austria, will be the local heroine, Janine Flock. I've now got to try and remember the last year that Janine Flock was our World Cup champion. We're getting very ahead of ourselves, but the form she's in now, the World Championship bronze medalist and former World Cup champion, is absolutely feeling no pain. Well, it doesn't hurt that she's training a lot with the Latvian coaching crews. But a big couple of weeks for Janine Flock. Fantastic stuff from her. So she's our World Cup points leader. Second in the points will be Kimberly Bos of the Netherlands after her second straight medal here as well. That's it for a week for the women. In 2 weeks' time, we are back on ice in Innsbruck in Austria. But don't forget that men's skeleton comes up 3 local time, 1300 GMT from Sigulda. We'll see you then. And until then, take care from me, Martin Haven, and the IBSF TV crew. It's bye for now.